I'm going to start with what Mark said before, because I think Dave Wicks and myself and any other former high school science teachers here, yeah, see, we understood what you were talking about, Mark. We actually got it. Thermodynamics, and of course, we knew. And you put the math up there, and I was actually checking your math work. Probably Angelica was too. I was looking to go, did he multiply those numbers correctly? Now, did he cancel units? You know, dimensional analysis. Come on, I'm looking at all of your work that's up there. You got 100 on it. So you did very well. But my former life, I was AP chemistry teacher, just like Mark, and Dave was physics. And, we all have a lot of that in common. When I stopped teaching, when I went into administration on the dark side, I was a science department chair and director at Riverhead and assistant superintendent. But I was also a high school principal for many years. And that's where Jim Nolan and I met each other. We were high school principals together. And a couple of our other colleagues started, and Brian now is high school principal. And Dave, I have, a special place in my heart for high school principals. But what we're going to do today is, and Mark, when you were talking about kids and the way they learn today, part of our presentation today is about digital natives. And Liz, I have to bring that up. Digital natives versus digital immigrants. They're borrowing the terminology from ESL. And there's also digital refugees. We all know who they are. Right? I have a couple of cartoons about that later. But students that we're teaching today now are called digital natives. And later in my presentation on creative classrooms and my colleagues, we're going to present to you about the difference today in students versus when we were students. And I have to tell you, Mark, you're up here and you're talking about floppy disks. Hello. How many of us out there were really happy to get the typewriter that had the correcto stuff built in? And you hit the X and it went back and corrected it. You're like, yeah, I don't have to type this whole thing over again. Right? Remember our typewriters? Really? Floppy disk? We got you beat, Mark. Hello. High school, we didn't have calculators. I learned on a slide rule. I know I don't look that old, but, No, I'm joking. So anyway, what I'd like to do first is introduce our expert panel. And this expert panel is going to be on e-learning. But before I do that, I just want to tell you just a little bit about how we got into using Right Reason when I was at Riverhead. We went and saw Sewanee and Amityville and William Floyd. We brought the program to Riverhead, Dave, 4 years ago? 4 or 5 years ago now, because we were having difficulty with our budget, as we all were. And one of the things that we were doing at Riverhead is providing tutors for students all over creation in our district, and we provided the buses to bring them all over creation. We did it at the library, we did it at homes, we did it at the youth center, we bussed people all over the place, and when we looked at what we were doing, it had just grown, and it was really not managed well at that point, just because it had grown that way, and Dave and I had inherited that. So we examined more effective, efficient ways of providing instruction to our students when they weren't in the traditional classroom. That's how we found Right Reason. We brought Right Reason in, and the first year we saved more than the cost of what Right Reason was to our district, and it was BOCES-able. So we brought that program in, and I want to say probably the first year off the cuff, I did the calculations, it was about $250,000 savings to us. It was huge. So we then looked at Right Reason and said, well, what can you do now with APPR? And we started meeting with the partners, and Pete said, laughing, Anthony, I bugged the heck out of these guys. And poor Dominic, he's like, oh, it's her again. But we said, what can you do for APPR? We need a way of managing this also. So all rolled into the cost, this whole integrated system. In Riverhead, we started with e-learning. We managed APPR then. We have student profile cards. We manage all of our data through Right Reason. And we saved a significant amount of money. But more than that, my role as assistant superintendent, it was successful for our students. That's what really mattered. And Dave will talk about that also, because he's actually, I have to tell everybody, he's my successor. And I'm honored to introduce you, Dave Wicks, if you'll come up to our panel. Dave's assistant superintendent, Riverhead School District. I'm honored, Dave. What a great person to have take my place. But you can't, I have big shoes to fill, but I think you've already beat me. Yeah, forget it. All right. You beat me. Next, Brian Zahn. He's principal at Southampton High School. Welcome, Brian. Also from the East End, Bob Tiemann. Assistant Sup, one of my former colleagues as Assistant Sup, East Hampton School District. And then we have Fred Rowley. There he is. Hey, Fred. He's coordinator at Sewanaka for eLearning, distance learning, and there are other programs there. And then we have 3 teachers from Amityville. We have Christine Kilfoyle, Jack Agostino, and Rich Romeo. Where'd he go? Oh, there he is, Rich. All from Amityville, and they're teachers, and they all are coordinators of their e-learning program as well. And that's one of the programs that we went to see many, many years ago. And Ryan Schoenfeld. There he is. And Ryan is one of our Right Reason Technology educational coordinators, liaison at Greece, Lindenville, Unadilla, I can keep going with the list, up in that area of the country that we call upstate. But if I go upstate next week, which I am, I'm not allowed to say that, right? What am I supposed to call it? I don't remember. North Country. No? West. Oh, West. Western New York. Because if you say upstate, they won't talk to me. So, and I do want people to talk to me. So, what we're going to do is we're going to start with some questions that came from the audience for our panel. And any one of you can answer and add to our questions. And of course, as we ask questions, you can certainly, please, chime in and ask any more questions that you might have. Sue, I did acknowledge you before. You must have been in the ladies' room. Hi. Sorry, what else? Of course, I had to embarrass you too, you know. One of our first questions is, what do you think e-learning or blended learning is? And our panelists say, go ahead, Dave, why don't you start? Oh. There you go. And here's another one for the sound. You're welcome.
Our definition of blended learning and e-learning at Riverhead has morphed because, as Lois said, when we brought this in about 4 years ago to replace or to be a significant part of our home instruction, suspension instruction model, none of us had really ever had any practical experience with blended instruction before. I mean, we knew the concept, we knew the idea, but how does it work? So there's different mindsets out there. I mean, some people might think it's just a kid sitting in front of a computer and completing assignments on the computer through Right Reasons, putting it in to be graded and getting a grade and moving on to the next assignment. That's possible. You could do that, but that's not blended instruction. And what we've come to adapt in Riverhead is having the ability to service multiple students, taking multiple classes, multiple curriculums at once. So you use the e-learning as a tool, but you also have the small group instruction happening where you still have the teacher working with small groups of students because you can never replace that. And we had issues with our teachers union at first when we first started to bring this program in, and it took us quite some time to convince them that we were not trying to replace teachers in the classroom because our opinion is you can't. But this just gives you more flexibility, practically for the things that we needed it for, but now you start to think about how different students learn. And that's kind of where we're going with it now is how can we address students, much like presenter before was saying, that learn in different ways, or teachers that want to teach in different ways. And now we have teachers that are starting to jump onto this and flip the classroom, and Right Reasons is part of that. So I guess my answer to that question is it's different things for different people. And you need, but this technology makes it possible for you to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Bob, anybody else want to pick up?
We'll talk about flipped classrooms. That's the way Amityville got started with it. We had a young man who flipped up a couple of desks. We had an alternative learning environment. Nobody really wanted to take him on, and we decided I run the alternative program. Christine runs. We have 2 parts to it. We have our suspensions that go from 3 o'clock to about 5:30, and and we have our alternative high school, or really alternative middle school, high school, from Mondays and Wednesdays and Saturdays. But we really couldn't meet those kids couldn't, learn in the regular school environment. So this was really the best way for us, and we really do blend it. Christine is an outstanding science teacher also, so we do work on computer, but then she'll go do a lab with the kids, so we'll do a lot of hands-on. And it's so outside the realm of the regular classroom. To me, it's really the best way to learn. And very similar to Mark's presentation, you really have to think now. This is the 21st century. Things are so different. Technology is so different. You have to use what you have available to us. And Right Reason has been a great source for us. I know the high school principal, and I was an assistant last year. We like when these kids go over to the alternative high school with us. It's a lot easier environment in high school, and it works really well for us. So we try to blend the computer technology with the teaching.
I'd like to add to that. Our program definitely does aid in for student development at the virtual, opposed to, I guess, the regular school day. The students will rotate from classroom to classroom for about an hour or so to supplement a lot of the material to the virtual learning program. So we're using a blended model of both, teacher to student instruction and then the computer.
I'm from Sewantica, and I'd be remiss to say that we probably the first one on Long Island to do this 7 years ago, when it wasn't OCD, and our students we used flipping desks. Our first group of students, one child tried to set the school on fire twice because he wasn't successful the first time. and we've had some tremendous success. We have encountered and have dealt with every single problem you can imagine, and we worked our way through it all. And I remember when Riverhead came out to see us, and it's just a model that has worked and it is growing with us. We have our regular classrooms that we are bound to give homebound instruction, and several years ago we did graduate 12 seniors from there with alternative education because there was just no place to look. So it's something that has happened, it's evolving as we speak. And it's just an amazing program to see. And it works for us, and I see it's working for a lot of other districts around.
When we think about this idea of the alternative high school, which is what is this is the new delivery system for an alternative high school. What an alternative used to mean was, all right, we got to get these kids the hell out of the main population and put them somewhere isolated so they don't keep flipping desks.
Burn the school down.
Right. Or try to burn the school down. As this evolves, where this should be headed is alternative isn't about isolating students from the rest of the population. The alternative should be in the delivery of instruction, and that's where Right Reason comes in. This should become, as it evolves, a model for what a traditional classroom should be. Figuring out how a student learns and delivering instruction in a way that allows them to learn. That's the flipped classroom. That's e-learning. And this is not saying that every student learns best by flipping the classroom or every student learns best by e-learning, a blended learning. It means there has to be a menu of delivery systems if we're really going to reach all our students. And this is providing that possibility.
That does lead right into our creative classroom presentation. I mean, you did a great intro. But go ahead, Brian. I mean, you have a totally different...
Sure. Yeah, actually, we know we have been speaking about the alternative placement, but what we did at Southampton High School is we were looking at a way to deliver a new way of delivering AIS and really trying to meet the needs of all different types of learners in our AIS course. We did experiment with various other online programs last year, and what we found is that many of the other programs didn't really allow our staff to provide high-quality direct instruction, whereas we were looking for something that was much more of a blended approach and happened to stumble upon Right Reason, and we piloted Right Reason at the end of last year, and it really seemed to fit our needs, because we have AIS classes where we have many different levels of students who need different things, different courses, all in the same classroom. So it allows our teachers to differentiate to meet the needs of students and work in small groups. So we're using it in a variety of ways in our AIS classes. We're also allowing all of our classroom teachers, general classroom teachers, to use RRT in the classroom as they see fit, as a way of differentiating to meet student needs as well. And then we are experimenting with the alternative program. So we are using it in many, many different ways, and so it has its place. And the beautiful thing about blended learning and the e-learning approach, and specifically with Right Reason, is that you can really design it to fit the needs of your school. So.
I mean, I can't really say it a whole lot better than everybody else did. I have a different perspective. I live and breathe. I don't know if everybody can see me. I'll move up a little. I live and breathe this every day. I help teachers, specifically in Western New York. Western.
I'll never learn to say that.
I work on the ground floor with the teachers, you know, everything from training to implementation, and everything that they've said, it's all encompassed by blended learning. It's really an overarching concept. The other things that I'll just mention, just to add on to it, are I have a lot of teachers come up to me that really want to supplement it within their gen ed class or whatever class that they teach during the day. So we work with a lot of programs that have kind of a one-room schoolhouse mentality, where many different students doing different classes, getting electives, finishing English 12, that kind of thing, so that they can catch up and graduate on time. But then we have the blended classrooms where they're, fusing, taking computer class, or their class took the computer lab, and infusing the instruction within that. So actually, all the students are working very well on at their own pace, while the teacher is maneuvering from student to student, giving them one-on-one instruction to fit their specific questions and their specific needs. And I think that that's been a really powerful asset to Greece up in Western Europe.
Good, thank you. And one of the important questions that came in was, do you run the programs during school or after school, or both? Oh, okay.
I didn't quite hear the question. Can you repeat that?
Do you run the program during school, after school, or both? Like when can students take advantage of this?
I utilize the Right Reason technology during my regular general ed classes. I'm teaching an algebra class, and I'm correlating with the Common Core curriculum. I go on the Engage New York, we're following the Common Core. And what I do is, for supplementary work, for a lab, we go into the computer lab, and I go into the curriculum because we mapped out the Common Core curriculum this past summer. And the Common Core curriculum works with the Right Reason technology curriculum because we parallel it beautifully. So if we're doing fractions, reducing or multiplying and dividing fractions, we go right on the Common Core, and they have the programs to accommodate what I'm doing that day. And even if I'm in another class like Investigations in Math, which is more like a business program, I could pull programs out of the Right Reason technology and pull it out of the bank and put it onto the student's profile for that day. And we also have rosters on our eSchool that correlates with the Right Reason technology as well. So I use it during the day in my general ed classes, and of course we use it with our alternative programs as well.
Mm-hmm. Good. Anybody do anything differently within their schools?
We do. It's used similar to Amityville. It's used all day. General ed teachers have access to it. Some of them do utilize it. It's part of our alternative program, which is housed on campus during the day. And we also, like I said before, we use it for our suspended students, a lot of our home instruction students, and we also have a credit recovery program so it's used literally 24 hours a day.
Any of the schools? Yeah, Fred, I think you do instead of study hall. Is your district using it?
No, we use it primarily after school.
After school.
Okay. For both homebound instruction and for credit recovery. Both programs run 4 days a week, Monday to Thursday. And then for the homebound instruction piece with our students who need science labs, we have a lab makeup day. We usually run that on a Friday, or something innovative for our district. We're going to open the labs on Saturday morning to get the kids their the labs that they need to take Regents exams.
One suggestion that I was going to make for our school district was to incorporate this program during our in-school suspension for our students, rather than them sitting in the in-school suspension room and teachers bringing down work. If they had a computer-based system where they could follow through with their studies during the school day, to be sure that they're on par with the classroom and keeping busy throughout the school day.
Yeah, and just to add something, if students are on short-term suspensions, like it's very common in our middle school program, again, the teachers will bring the work to us, some of the work that they teach in the class. And of course, with the Right Reason technology, they're on track with the mapping guides that we have. Well, for example, for the first quarter, they might be doing, let's say, monomials. And we know that if the 7th grade or 8th grade curriculum is doing that specific topic, the Right Reason technology has the mapping guide that correlates with the first, second, third, and fourth quarters as well.
I just want to add also that some of the students came up to me. We do run the Saturday program, and we do buy bagels. Mr. Romeo is the man for the bagels, so we have that every Saturday morning. Yep. But one of the young ladies, she had to go to work. She had to get out of here. But she goes, I'm going to do the work. I have it on my phone. So the phone is a computer. So she was showing me what she was doing on her phone. So I was like, all right, go ahead. You can go. So we were very flexible in that way also.
A few of our students actually, a few of our students from the alternative program on Saturday mornings, they actually do use their cell phone, and they have downloaded the cyber extension. So rather than them using the computer at the school to complete their studies, they are actually using their own cell phone. So they're kind of, engaging in their own and taking pride in their work by using their own cell phone rather than the school's materials.
I know. Oh, I didn't get all of them, so yes, please.
So the question came up from our audience, the accountability of the teacher of record. How does the system allow the teacher of record or the homeschool teacher to see what work is being done and account for that?
I could answer, I guess, the question partly. We have a grade book on the Right Reason technology program, just for the programs that they do on the computer. We also have student folders that if they want to do some essays, and some kids don't want to use the computers at all. And a good example was last week, one of the students, Mr. Roman, I don't want to write the essay on the computer. I want to write it on a piece of paper, and I want to hand it to you. So basically, that's very easy to record. We record it on the computer as being completed on 10, 12, 13. Student handed an essay, and then we have little student folders in filing cabinets, virtual 1, virtual 2. So it's very flexible in that we have grades from the computer, and we also have grades recorded on the computer that's recorded in the student folders themselves.
I was just laughing and joking around because our students, they have portfolios, so they get a big kick out of having their own portfolio. They feel all professional when they're there. So we have their portfolios set up for their written work. And then something that we implemented was that every 10 assignments the student completes on the Right Reason program, the grades be printed up and placed into their portfolio. So that's another form of record for the student.
As far as the teacher of record is concerned, most of our students that are in our virtual academy are suspended students. So therefore, they are on a teacher's roster, and it is incumbent on the teacher that has them on their roster to send appropriate work, classroom work, to our virtual academy. And the grades are calculated based on the length of time a student is there. If a student is there for 3 weeks or less, or 3 weeks, 4 weeks, half a quarter, let's say, the grade that the student earns from the work at Right Reason is sent back to the teacher, and they use it as a guide to their grading, that classroom grading policy. For any student there longer than one marking quarter, the teacher of record is still the classroom teacher. However, or teachers at the virtual academy supply the grade, and that is the grade that goes on the transcript.
Yeah, it's very similar to Sawanica in terms of teacher of record. We spent a lot of time really analyzing how that was going to play out with this. But it's very simply, if we have a student that is on a short-term suspension, the classroom teacher is pushing out the lessons for that student, the appropriate lessons. The lessons are completed with the suspended tutors or facilitators, and then when the student submits that lesson, it goes right back to the classroom teacher. So the classroom teacher receives the grade, also is grading any sort of written material that is in there, and has the ability to reassign and push back the lesson to the student if corrections need to be made. So the classroom teacher remains the teacher of record for us.
It's the same thing at Riverhead. So if a student's on short-term suspension, whatever work they do through Right Reason or through the program that they're in, or short-term home instruction, that gets pushed to the teacher of record, and that becomes a percentage of their quarter grade. If it's a long-term absence from class, then just like they said, basically the facilitators in the program grade the work through Right Reasons, provide that grade to the teacher, but the teacher in the classroom remains a teacher of record throughout the year.
Okay, another question from the audience. Just want to go back to yours. It's really a two-part question. Summer school. Are you using the RightPath platform for summer school, and how is that cost effective, and how we do it differently? And then also, have you ever thought about doing summer school for these kids?
We don't use it for summer school. We don't have a summer school in our district.
Since I'm the principal of summer school, we do use it, and it is very effective. But again, it's so blended. You know, we can't meet every student's needs with a teacher, unfortunately. You know, just because of the expense issue. So, like, Earth Science just keeps jumping off the page for us. And there was a couple of students, and they're outside the district. They're private school students, and we didn't have an Earth Science program with a teacher, so we had them come in and work on the Right Reason program, and you know, it was very successful for us. So it is a cost saving. Unfortunately, you know, I'm not into not getting teachers work. I want teachers to work as much as possible, but in certain cases, you know, budgetary constraints is really hurting us at this time. So Right Reason does come in handy that way.
And can I add to that, just because Dave and I went back and forth about summer school, but one of the things it does allow us to do is allow students to get credit recovery during the school year, which cuts down on the expense of summer school, but you also don't have kids repeating classes. If you can get rid of one section of students repeating, let's say Global 9, you can add an elective back in, one section. So you actually can diversify your course offerings in a high school, and that's one of the things that Dave and I were concerned about as well when we were working on this.
We do use it in summer school. We were a BOCES site, but we hosted BOCES summer school. Unfortunately, again, due to budget constraints, seems to be the story of the past couple of years, we just couldn't afford to do it anymore. But through Right Reasons, we were able to, for about half the prices it costs us to do that, host it locally and use Right Reason to basically support the summer school. Again, it's a blended instruction model, so it's not students coming in, sitting in front of the computer, knocking out a few assignments and going home for the day. Especially in your Regents classes, you still have, you still need that teacher there that personal connection to help prep them for that exam. But it allows the teacher the flexibility to do that. So not everybody is going to need the same level of assistance. And then, like Lois said, some of it is just straight credit recovery. If someone, you have a senior that failed health, Either they're going to do that during the year on Right Reason, or they're going to do it during the summer and be an August grad, or it frees you up. It makes you more flexible.
Dave, talk about the ranch, too, because that was distance learning.
We have a facility within our district called the Timothy Hill Children's Ranch, and I guess the best, I don't know what their official title is as far as the state's concerned, but basically they are a step in between for troubled youths. They're a step in between, the court and jail. So what they've been for the past, they've been open for, I think, 15 years. Student gets in trouble with the law, they go in front of a judge, and a judge has the option to send them to a facility such as this. It's a residential facility, so regardless of where they come from, they're living in the Riverhead School District, and they become Riverhead Central School District students. So up until, was it 3 years ago we started with them? Up until 3 years ago, every student in the ranch that was of high school age, and most of them are, came to Riverhead High School as a regular Riverhead High School student. You can imagine, these kids have a lot going on, and so coming from wherever they came from, doing whatever they did, and coming to a very diverse building of 1,500 students, it's hard for them to rehabilitate while they're being faced with a completely different environment. Kids know who they are and why they're there, and it's got the. So we started, and then on top of that, the requirements of who got sent to where within the judicial system changed. So the Timothy Hill Children's Ranch started seeing a lot more students with significant mental health issues that they would not have seen before. And so now you add those issues on, and that student walks into the high school, and there's no way they were going to be successful. It's not to say that all of them were not, but a lot of them had just had a real tough time adjusting to being part of this community. So Lois and the people at the ranch kind of worked together to develop this idea where we extended Right Reason technology into the Timothy Hill Ranch. So I would say at this point the majority of their students actually are educated on site, which works very well for them. Now I was a high school principal, and I can tell you that the majority of the students that came from the ranch to the building were fantastic, and it wasn't an issue of Riverhead trying to push those kids out. It was more of an issue of they're not successful because they just can't be. So the ranch had the facilities to basically set up a classroom with computers. They were able to hire teachers, a lot of which were already home tutors through our own district, so they had familiarity with the program in the district. And they were educated on site, at Timothy Hill, which was great because they can make up their own schedules. So they have a 2-hour block in the morning where they're going and doing education, but then they're doing other rehabilitative things during the day. That rehab part did not have to wait until 3 o'clock when they got home from school. It was just integrated into their day. I'm speaking on their behalf, but that was the success of that. And I can't quote the numbers for you, but the success of these students between Regents exams and graduation rates and just overall behavior problems decreasing was so significant, and it's been a great success. So that was, and if anyone has that sort of situation in their district, this made it completely possible.
Good. Do we still have time? How are we doing? 5 minutes. Okay. So another question for the panel that came up was, can teachers customize the curriculum? And do teachers, in effect, add intervention lessons or enrichment lessons into the platform?
I can start off by saying that our general education classroom teachers and our AIS teachers have been using the curriculum within RRT, and they have been uploading some of their own materials in there. So it is, you do have the ability to customize it, and I've seen that being done by our classroom teachers.
Absolutely. I mean, as a matter of fact, when we first started with it, and this is no offense to RRT, but some of our teachers, when they first started with it, said, no, that's not going to work here because we don't do that. And I think one of the questions on the sheet that I was handed was, what's the role of the liaison? So I'll throw that in here. I mean, the liaison that RRT provides is catamount to the success, because they just, if a teacher says, I have this assignment, I want it put in for English 10. All right, and within 5 minutes it's done, and assigned to those students. It's completely customizable, and whoever, if I don't know if you all are using it or if you're contemplating using the program, I would highly recommend that you do customize it. Look at the curriculum. I mean, you know, it's all great curriculum, but we all do different things for our different populations. Build that into part of to being part of the program of, you know, getting your teachers to look at it, and because it's not going to work just like anything else unless the people that are facilitating it are bought into it, and they will do that more readily if they have more ownership into it.
I just want to add something. About a year or two ago, I was teaching a math investigations, which is like a math for daily living course. And I remember Jamie was working with Amityville about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And I had a great website that I was using for my students. And, you know, I said, Jamie, do you think we can use some of this material and integrate it into the math for daily curriculum? And absolutely, it was integrated in the curriculum, and we're using it as of now.
So the whole course was put in?
No, just,
or just pieces?
Supplements of the math for daily living curriculum we took from some websites, and it really enhanced it tremendously.
Oh, okay.
We ask teachers constantly to differentiate. So to take any given curriculum and say, okay, this is what we're going to deliver would be the exact opposite of that. So we're looking to blend. We're looking to make it agile, to use the word of the day. It has to adapt to the needs of the kids and the style of the teacher. So it's kind of like a baseline to start with, and then you adapt it to what's going to work for the students in the seats.
I'd like to add to the question. Over the summer, we had worked with a team, and we looked through a lot of the assignments through Right Reason, and our teachers at Amityville that were working on the curriculum team added some of their own work to Right Reason. So we've kind of adapted it to Amityville's, you know, the teachers of Amityville's work, and added those assignments in. So, you know, in addition to the assignments provided through Right Reason, they now have access of, you know, Amityville's own teachers' assignments, PowerPoints, lessons, labs, and so on.
Yeah, up in Western New York, Greece specifically, we have, you know, there's 4 buildings, and each building and each teacher that was content specific had a different feeling about each curriculum. So I suggested, why don't we start altering? And I had one person design his own earth science course all by himself using our templates and using our blank lessons. He was adding all his own resources. He was adding links to web pages to, you know, further their investigation, articles. He was adding, you know, Word documents and PowerPoint presentations and all these things that he does on a daily basis. Sorry if you can't see me. In his own instructions so that he could infuse it. He was actually doing, just like Mark was talking about earlier, he was videotaping himself doing science lessons and labs so that they could see it and go over it over and over again if they wanted to. So from that, I also have, there's a big need for Regents Prep. And Regents Prep is, we have curriculum, but sometimes it's too much. You want to drill down to the need to know kind of stuff. And so we've taken the curriculum, we've drilled it down to the need to know. Now we have specifically global, which is the big one, obviously. Algebra is also another one in that district. So really what they did was they went lesson by lesson. They had you know, one team of teachers, lesson by lesson, went through each one and knocked out stuff that didn't need it and accented other things that needed more. So there's so many possibilities, and basically anytime a teacher says, hey, can I do this? I said, absolutely. You can take a word out, you can add a word, you can add a whole new lesson. So, you know, you could build your own curriculum, you can take ours and modify it. It's unbelievable how customizable it is.
And that kind of leads right to the next question that I had on the list. How tech savvy do you have to be in order to do those kinds of things? Is it easy to use? And one of the things that we're going to be presenting later is Creative Classroom and a flipped classroom. And using the platform to do that, how creative and how tech savvy do you really have to be to do that?
To do the basics of the program, you need to know how to navigate a website, in my experience anyway. I mean, the teachers that we had involved with the program, especially the after-school program, were fantastic teachers, but I would not have labeled them as our most tech savvy. You know, like I would not have labeled them as a person like Mark that would be flipping classrooms. They, you know, and this I come back to the liaison. I mean, you know, if you have anything you want that needs to go in the right reason, you just kind of hand it over to the liaison, and it magically appears there. Now, of course, having said that, if we're talking about e-learning and flipping classrooms, obviously the sky is the limit as far as your imagination is concerned, as far as you know, using the tool to the best of its abilities. But to facilitate the program, like I said, you need to be comfortable with how to turn on a computer, navigate a website, use a Word document, you know, a word processing program, you know, at the very least. But you don't have to be at the top edge of tech savviness.
I think that's also why liaisons are certified teachers, because patience is something that you absolutely need in education. I'm elementary and special ed certified, so my patience is vast. And my mom was same for 32 years, so hers was vast, and that's where I learned it. I've taught and trained, you know, someone that barely knows how to turn on a computer to someone who is definitely way better than me in all computer and technology. And eventually you get there, you know, you have to answer a lot more questions and for lack of a better term, hold their hands for somebody that's, you know, a refugee or something like that. But I've always had the buy-in eventually. You just have to be there for them and support them. And that's why I think the most important part of the liaison is from the top to the bottom, you absolutely you're there for them. So you're just support.
Yeah, just to add on to that, one thing that I've been really promoting with the staff is not to heavily rely on the liaison. I want the staff working within the system, because the reality is the more you work within the system, the better you're going to become at it. So in order to get it off the ground and do the basic features, you do not have to be overly tech savvy, just as Dave said. But with the more advanced features of it, you have to practice. Just like anything else, the more you use it, the better you will become. And that's something that our staff is seeing.
And actually, Brian, can you speak to the training? Because how much training actually did your teachers need before they were actually...
We actually had 2 levels of training. All of our general teachers, classroom teachers, received a half-day training to get off the ground. Then what we did is for our AIS staff, who we are using the program a little bit differently, as I'll explain later, we provided another half-day training. So that's it, really. It was a half day for the general staff, an additional half day for the AIS group, and then with the liaison is coming and giving on-the-job training as we go. But it really is, the teachers took what they took from the half-day training, and then they started to run with it and practiced it, and they're using it within their rooms, and they're becoming better at it the more that they use it.
Good. That's Anthony's giving me the signal. Okay. And thank you very much for participating in our panel.